Alright, Shalom, Shalom. This is your brother Mishaba coming back at you with another lesson. First, before I get into it, I want to give all honor and glory to Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai, Bahashim, Kagudash. Second thing I want to do is give the honors to all the elders and apostles of Great Millstone and citations to all the brothers that are pushing the truth with both sincerity and with charity. Alright, so what I wanted to get into is putting the Lord first. All right, if you put the Lord first, He will reward you. All right, and putting the Lord first ain't just doing things every once in a while, like you don't do lessons that often, or you don't read that often. You put other things in your life ahead of the Lord. Yes, we all have our responsibilities, jobs, families, schools. We're still in school, but the number one thing that precedes that, transcends above all of that is Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai. Okay, ultimately, because He's the one that's going to give us salvation. So if you're not putting in that work and showing Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai, you putting Him first, all right, in some shape or form, then why would He want to reward you? All right, especially we don't inherently deserve it. All right, because Scripture say we are, He has given us less than our iniquities deserve in the first place. So for Him to even give us that, that privilege of breathing right now, okay, is a reward in itself. So we must go our hardest for Yahweh Shema Shai. All right, this is Matthew 6:19. Lay not up for yourselves treasures upon earth, where moth and rust doth corrupt, where thieves break through and steal. But lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust doth corrupt, and where thieves do not break through nor steal. For your treasure is, there will your heart be also. All right. So, yeah, man. All right. So, what is your treasure? All right. Is your treasure Yahweh Shema Shai, or is your treasure something in this world? All right. Your words only convey so much. All right, but your actions, is the biggest factor. All right, you could say you a man of the Lord. You could say you push your hardest for the Lord, but are you really doing all that you can? All right, and with the more leisure time you have, is the more that you should be doing. Okay, if you have this amount of leisure time, you should be reading this much more. All right. Should be doing this much more of videos, and that goes for me first and foremost. All right, but you got this much leisure time, you should be studying this much more. All right, hanging out with brothers this much more. All right, things of that manner. Okay, so yeah, but this is Philippians 2:12. Wherefore, my beloved, as ye have always obeyed, not as in my presence only, but now much more in my absence, work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. Okay, and how do you work out your own salvation with fear and trembling? All right. First you gotta, be doing your lessons, going out to these highways and byways, studying, reading, all right, praying. All right, that's working on your own salvation with fear and trembling. All right, because to first understand these scriptures, you got to fear Yahweh Shema Shai. All right, you got to understand that this is something crucial, and the Lord will kill your ass if you're not doing what you got to do. All right, he will have your ass, be joined in death with Esau Edom, which is the last thing you want, man. All right. Your ass don't want to be in a lake of fire with a group of wicked ass niggas and nasty ass heathens. Okay? That's not what you want. You want to be joined with the elect. All right, the children of Yahweh Shema Shai. Well, the elect of Yahweh Shema Shai. All right, because all the Israelites are children of the Lord. Okay, but not all of them are the elect. Okay, as the scripture say, not all Israel is Israel. Okay, that also goes into, these Israelites that are in a Gentile mind state. All right, the 2/3. Most of Jake are in the Gentile mind state. All right, so this verse 13. For it is Yahweh which worketh in you both to will and to do good of his good pleasure. So, yeah. All right, so the Lord, he wants to see you, work off your debt. All right, so you can claim the reward of the kingdom. All right, we're gonna have to go through things, but this is all just showing our faith and determination. All right, nigga, how bad do you want to make it, nigga? Not how bad, this brother wants to make it is gonna determine, if you make it. Nah, okay. You gotta determine your own fate by your own works. Okay. This is 2nd Esdras chapter 7. I'm starting at verse 6. There's also another thing. A city is built and set upon a broad field and is full of all good things. The entrance thereof is narrow and is set in a dangerous place to fall, like as if there were a fire on the right hand and on the left a deep water. And one only path between them, even between the fire and the water, so small that there could be one man go there at once. So, that's talking about, the kingdom. So the kingdom is our end goal, correct? And the only way to get through that, is straight and narrow. All right, but there's going to be things to distract us. That's talking about that left side and that right side. There's going to be all sorts of things in this world to distract us from our main goal, whether it be a good job, all right, family troubles, especially a woman. All right, a woman will be, top 3 in the list to distract you from the truth. All right, a woman could be one of the main reasons you fall out the truth. Okay, or you doing sports and you want to go professional with it. When you doing sports and you want to go professional with it, sports got to be your whole life. All right, and you want to be good and professional at it. Whatever sport you're doing, you dang near got to be, your whole life got to revolve around it to the point where you have minimal time for the Lord. All right, when you're doing something like that where it requires all of your body and energy, then naturally, all right, it's gonna start to you won't have time to do what you gotta do for Yahweh Shema Shai, man. All right, now if you do find a way to do that, all right, without falling to Esau's contractual schemes of you gotta cut this out. All right, and there's that. Even if you do get in that sport and Esau do offer you a contract or whatever, all right, you still doing what you got to do for the Lord in the manner that you should be doing. Here comes Esau with this. Oh, all right, you gotta promote this image of idolatry if you still want to make this amount of money. All right, there's that, man. So nothing can be perfect right now, man. Okay, we gotta wait for the kingdom to get what we truly want. All right, because you could be good. You could be doing what you gotta do for the Lord, but then Esau, he's not gonna want you to be doing what you gotta do for the Lord. All right, because then your image is gonna get out there. All right, how's gonna look? NFL superstar, all right, makes YouTube video. Talking about white people are going into slavery. Okay? Esau gonna take your money away instantaneously. All right? So, yeah, man, we gotta wait for the kingdom to have things how we should have them. All right? But to get to the kingdom, you gotta put the Lord first. Point blank period. This is 2 Corinthians 4:16. For which cause we faint not, but though our outward man perisheth, the inward man is renewed day by day. All right, that new man. Okay, for our light affliction, which is worketh for us a far more exceeding and eternal weight of glory. While we look not at the things which are seen, but at the things which are not seen. For things which are seen are temporal, but the things which are not seen are eternal. So yeah. All right, so that a bitch that's trying to seduce you, that's something that's temporal. All right, that a job that's offering $35 an hour, but you gotta work 80-hour weeks. All right, that's temporal. Okay, and so on and so forth, man. All right, you get what I'm saying, man. Lay up your treasures in heaven. All right, yeah, still do what you gotta do. That don't mean don't have a job out here. All right, that don't mean just be celibate from women unless that's what you want to do. All right, but that just means put the Lord first. If you see something is distracting you from serving Yahweh Shem Shai the best you can, then either learn how to control it or cut it off. All right, but put the Lord first, and He will reward you. All right, He, show the Lord that you are thankful. All right, and He's gonna return that energy. All right, not only with blessings now, but with the kingdom later on. Okay, so with that, I hope this lesson was edifying. I will give all the honor and glory to Yahweh by Hashem Yahushai, by Hashem Kakudash. Second thing I'll do is give all honors to all the elders and apostles of Great Millstone, and salutations to all of you brothers that are pushing the truth with both sincerity and with charity. Shalom, well, Kwame Asharala, well, Shalom, Makim, stay faithful.